Yo, it's drafting season, but unfortunately, it's not redraft season just yet, and it's almost dynasty draft season, but not quite there. But it's NFL draft season. Yo, what is going on, everybody? It is level 5 of the Fantasy Football Podcast, and of course, I am Natter alongside the Tip. Man, how you doing over there?
Bro, I am good. Hectic week, but I'm good. I'm happy to be on here with you, and I'm happy to have Frank Ammirante on here, man, with Fantasy Pros, with Roto Baller. And look, guys, we did a space last year with Scott the King Angle, Sam Wagman. We had a hell of a time. It was always a blast, especially with Frank on here. So, Frank, welcome to the space, man. Welcome to the Level Up podcast with Natter and myself, man. How you doing?
Oh, it's a pleasure to be on. Thank you for having me. It's great to talk football. You know, I do baseball work too, so I've been in baseball mode, but now this is a nice transition coming on to your podcast just in time coming up with the NFL draft. I'm hyped.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at your Twitter. I was stalking your Twitter, I should say, and I saw a lot of baseball stuff going on, and that reminds me, there's a little bit of a meme of a player. I don't know if you've heard of it, Nick Castellanos.
Oh yeah.
Him. Can you tell us about it? I know you might know a little bit more about it, but I'm sure Tape and everybody else doesn't.
So basically, it started when one of the announcers was talking about. I forgot who it was. It was a controversy or some player that got into trouble. And as he's describing that, he's like, and there's a home run from Nick Castellanos. Like he just went back to play-by-play commentating. And now it's like every time Castellanos homers, there's a joke that like something went on in the real world. And it's just a thing. It's just a silly meme. Yeah, it's funny.
It is funny because he hit a home run yesterday, or it was 2 days ago, and it just so happens the stock market kind of had a mini crash while they were honoring their coach that had a stroke. He hits a home run, and it's like in the middle of them talking about it, they're like, "Oh yeah, the head coach, the manager, just had a stroke." And meanwhile, they have to stop that little mini announcement for his home run play-by-play, and there's multiples. There's Queen Elizabeth dying. There's the 9/11 memorial, and it just so happens whenever, and it's not like he's like a slugger or a phenomenal he's a pretty good baseball player, but he only averages like 20 home runs a year.
Yeah, and
it just so happens that every single time he hits a home run, something happens. So I always thought that's funny. Obviously, welcome to the podcast episode. Me being a Cubs fan, we don't get much to celebrate. So
wait,
hey, they're good this year though.
Tell us again why you're a Cubs fan. Don't you have family or something?
Yeah, so I have some family in Chicago, but when I played baseball, I molded my game after Derek Lee.
Okay.
He was my favorite player growing up.
Yeah.
And he was the switch. He caught left-handed, but no, he caught right-handed, but he batted left-handed.
Yeah.
So I'm left-handed. I needed somebody to kind of model my game at the time. And Derek Lee was the guy, and I played first base. He played first. It just worked out that way.
Wait. Now, how big are you? Are you like, how tall are you?
My dating Tinder profile was like 6 feet, but now I'm like 5'11".
Okay, Frank's pretty tall, so I know Frank's probably about what 6'2", 6'3",
like 6'1".
6'1". Okay.
Yeah, but it says 6'5" though for him. So
well, Frank, before we get into the football talk, what is the team? I know you're in Canada, so who are you rooting for? Are you a Blue Jays fan?
Oh yeah, so I'm a Blue Jays fan. We're happy that they finally got to re-sign Vlad Jr. I was worried that it wasn't going to happen, but it's great to finally lock in one of their elite talents. Toronto, we always tend to lose in like Kawhi with the Raptors, and other than the Leafs are able to keep their young stars. Like the Jays, we tend to lose them too. Like Carlos Delgado back in the day, we had to trade him. Yeah. Vernon Wells left, even though that one kind of worked out. Roy Halladay, the list goes on. So it's nice to keep the homegrown talent.
Yeah, 100%.
But right now we got the NFL going on, and of course the NFL draft is 2 weeks away. There's a lot going on, and right now we're going to be talking about some players that we anticipate going to a specific team, and then how that's going to affect the fantasy value, whether that's that player specifically or the team in the whole. If a stud receiver gets drafted, obviously that affects the whole surrounding of the landscape for that team, or a running back or a quarterback or more importantly, an offensive lineman, in my opinion. But right now, we're going to start off with Mr. Frank. Give us a player that, you know what, you expect him to have some fantasy value or interested while they're transitioning to the NFL.
Yeah, so we'll start with Ohio State wide receiver Emeka Egbuka. 6'1", 202-pound slot receiver. He's drawn comparisons to Jackson Smith-Njigba from Lance Zierlein of the NFL.com.
Yep.
Egbuka had over 80 catches, 1,000 yards, and 10 touchdowns in his senior year. Polished prospect who could really make an immediate impact. You like to have that slot receiver chain mover that could, if he gets in the right spot and emerges as his team's top target, we saw what that could look like. Like, look at Ladd McConkey with the Chargers last year, similar style in being able to be a chain mover. And I really would be interested in Egbuka. Maybe in the right spot, he could be JSN, how JSN looked in last season. So a nice receiver to look for in this year's draft.
So what team do you hope drafts him?
Well, if I'm saying just as an NFL fan, I would love my Commanders to draft him. Even though the Commanders brought in Deebo Samuel, bringing in a slot like Egbuka would look nice with the deep threat that is Terry McLaurin. But from a fantasy level, we can look at, the Denver Broncos with Bo Nix. Bo Nix is accurate, rhythm passer. They have more of a deep threat in Cortland Sutton. They can really use like an underneath threat like Egbuka, and he could fit in well where he could maybe emerge and lead that team in targets if it worked out that way. So I'd love to see him with the Broncos or my Commanders.
Mm-hmm. Tip, what do you think of that one?
Look, I think that Egbuka is one of those guys that I talked to him about going to the Commanders or maybe the Chiefs, because look, the Chiefs are in a situation that they have Xavier Worthy with his situation that happened over the offseason. We already know what's going on with Rashee Rice with his off-field issues and injury. So, yeah, I can see him going to one of those teams that need a slot guy, that need a strong receiver. Commanders would be a good option. I do think I also talked about him as well in one of my articles on OddsChecker. And, yeah, I think that he would be one of those guys that could elevate that team to the next level. So I like it. So any of those teams that are looking for a slot receiver, yeah, the Commanders are looking for one. The Luke McCaffrey situation, we don't know what's going to happen with it. We know that his talent is raw, but we know his pedigree. He comes from his dad, Ed McCaffrey, and then of course we all know his brother CMC. So we still got a little bit left to look up with him. But I think that Egbuka would be one of those guys. I think the last time I checked, I haven't checked it in a couple of weeks, but the over-under on wide receivers getting drafted in the first round was 2.5 wide receivers. I think that it's actually going to be a little over that. I think it's going to be 3, with Egbuka being one of those guys alongside Matthew Golden and Tet McMillan too. So I think that we get to see 3 receivers picked in the first round. So I like that pick.
Man, every single time somebody mentions the Chiefs getting another weapon, I cringe a little bit.
I'm
like, no, come on, they don't need another one. Let somebody else have it. They don't need it.
They're always looking for ways to evolve the offense, always looking for ways to get weapons to Patrick Mahomes. A lot of his weapons, like Travis Kelce, obviously know how old he's getting. And Noah Gray's there in the mix, but I think somebody like Egbuka would be good for this team. I don't know if he goes that route or if they go with him, but you got to always keep them in mind.
I don't like it regardless.
But me neither, being a Raiders fan.
Which is even more embarrassing. But Tip, give us another player.
Well, so for me, I'm looking at the Chicago Bears, right? So I just wrote an article on OddsCheckers talking about the Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears are sneaky because on OddsCheckers, they're plus 470 to win this division. It's a little sneaky. And I look at players like what they've done in the offseason when they got Joe Thuney from the Kansas City Chiefs. And I see what they did with this team. I see what they're doing. Ben Johnson, he's going to emphasize the offensive line. He's going to want to run the ball. He's going to want to protect Caleb Williams. So I'm looking at a guy like Will Campbell. I know he's not a fantasy asset. Although I think that fantasy players, I think we should start looking at teams or systems that will reward offensive tackles or offensive players, because look, when they get a pancakes, or if they, stop one of the opposing defender, look, we could get fantasy stats in there with those players. But I'm looking at a guy like Will Campbell. This dude pushed up 225 pounds 23 times in his pro day. That's huge. And he's a big, strong guy. He's a little nasty. I like what he can bring to the offensive line of the Chicago Bears. So I'm looking at him to go to Chicago. They sure up this offensive line. And then I think the Chicago Bears are a sneaky team that could possibly win this division. Look at what the Minnesota Vikings did last year. And everybody had them, including myself, had them about 5, 6, maybe 7 wins. They got 14. So I see a team maybe possibly the Detroit Lions taking a step back a little bit. Maybe the Minnesota Vikings taking a step back. I would say that the Packers probably stay even plateau where they were, but I think the Bears could be a little sneaky and could be one of those teams that sneak in there. But you know what? They are the Chicago Bears, and that's what they do. They go ahead and they wet the bed at the end of the day. So we'll see what happens with what they do. But if I'm a team like Chicago, I'm really looking for it to possibly draft Will Campbell.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite thing is when a team drafts an offensive lineman. It elevates everybody on that offense. Elevates the quarterback, the running back, the wide receivers, the offense as a whole. It just makes them more productive, and especially in a dynasty format where, if you have Caleb Williams or DeAndre Swift or Keenan Allen or DJ, all the weapons that they have on that offense. When they draft an offensive lineman, you're thinking, yes, like that helps sustain or elevate their fantasy value. If they draft another wide receiver, you're like, oh man, there goes that trade I made last year for Keenan Allen. Or if they, if you have DeAndre Swift and they draft help me out here, Tip, what's his name? Genty. They draft Genty, you're like, oh well, there goes that value of Swift. But when they draft an offensive lineman, you're hyped, and I'm all for that. But Frank, what do you think?
Yeah, I like what you said about the Bears. I was high on them last year, but we were too early, and it comes down to coaching. They made the big splash bringing in Ben Johnson, who looks like he'll be a stud head coach, and that could really help with Caleb Williams' development alongside what you said with the O-line. So, given that it's a combination with the coaching upgrade and those offensive line upgrades, I could absolutely see not only a Caleb Williams breakout season, but contending for the division. It will go hand in hand. If Caleb breaks out, they're going to be right there. And like you said, the Lions could take a bit of a step back losing Ben Johnson. We can't downplay the loss of such an elite play caller. So, I like that call.
Mm-hmm. And that also followed up with another player that you're hyped up for.
Yeah, so I like running back Trevion Henderson, another Ohio State player, 5'10", 202 pounds. He's explosive. Compared to Aaron Jones by Lance Zierlein of NFL.com, Henderson averaged over 7 yards per carry in his senior year. He could look nice as an explosive runner. It could be like the 1A in a committee, at least as a rookie, that is. And, that's exciting for fantasy. We see what these home run hitters can do. Definitely interested in Henderson, seeing where he lands.
So running backs, is there a estimated draft position that he's going to be? Is he what, like third, first, second?
He could go like late first round or probably in the second round, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Like these running backs, I feel like are going to be pushed up a little this year. It seems like, with all the success of these stud running backs like Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, and their new teams, maybe teams are going to be more inclined to pursue one. Like, say, my Commanders picking at the end of the first round, Washington needs an explosive big play threat. That's like a missing piece in their offense. It would look real nice. I mean, Jaden Daniels, the threat with his legs, opening up running lanes. We saw how Jalen Hurts, how good that worked with Saquon Barkley. Same idea could work with Jaden Daniels, and I could definitely see them pursuing a running back like this, the Commanders.
Tip, how do you feel about that one?
Yeah, so it's one of those situations where, yes, they are going to need a player of that caliber. So I like it. I think that it'll be a smart move for them. But it's gonna be fun to see where they go. But I think I like it. I think it'll be a really smart move.
I honestly, I'd like the Cowboys to take him. I think if he is slotted into the Cowboys lineup, he has a very realistic path to relevancy and RB1 status. I don't think the Cowboys have a solid running back one. I don't care what you say about their offseason signings. I just think he's really bad. That's just me. I think Trayvon Henderson significantly improved that not offensive line, that team on the offensive side. But Tip, give us a player.
Yeah, so I'm going to go to the AFC West on this one. I'm not going to go to the Raiders because I'm not going to jinx.
Thank God.
I'm not going to jinx my team. I know. I have a feeling. I think I know what they're going to do. I got a feeling. I'm not going to say much, but I think they're going to surprise people. But I am going to go to the San Diego or the LA Chargers. So the Chargers, what they're looking at is they're looking at a situation where they might be trying to get rid of Quentin Johnston. I've heard some reports out there that he might be on the trading block. They love Ladd McConkey. They really don't have that other weapon. I don't think Quentin Johnston's that bad. I think, last year had 5 drops as opposed to the year before we had seemed like had 1 million drops. So I think that we're going to see a situation where they try to go aggressive with this offense. They need offensive weapons. They need a tight end. They need offensive line, and they need a wide receiver. So let's enter in Matthew Golden, since we're going to talk wide receivers. I think that this kid is the wide receiver of the draft so far. He didn't quite beat Xavier Worthy's 40 record like he said he was going to do. But I will say this, that Matthew Golden, LA Chargers, it makes sense to me. We'll see what happens, and let's see if they get him. Because if they do get him, that would be fantasy gold to get Justin Herbert, another weapon. I know they love to run the ball. Look out for Najee Harris. Look out for J.K. Dobbins if he does come back. But I think that if you get Justin Herbert, another weapon like Matthew Golden, who could take the top off, really fast wide receiver, he's got great hands. I think that's going to be the piece, and that's the making of a really decent offense.
Funny enough, again, I could see the Cowboy. I mean, I hate saying the Cowboys, but I feel like they're also slotted to take him as well. Frank, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I like the idea of the Chargers getting another offensive weapon for Herbert. You saw in the second half of the season when they started to throw a little more, and Herbert was balling out with McConkey, but it really seemed they just needed one more piece to really complete the offense. And later when we do the call your shot segment, I actually have a Chargers pick too. Similar idea with the offense, but I like your call of getting an upgrade, a receiver. Even if they keep Quentin Johnston, they still would, I'd say, need another wideout. So it works in that way too, especially a burner like you said, like Golden.
And I really appreciate you, Tip, for not picking the Raiders and saying, "Oh, I'm not going to homer and embarrass them like that," considering they're going to do it themselves on the football field.
Look, Natter, look, the Commanders gave us hope last year, man. The Commanders have given a lot of teams hope. The Commanders have given us hope, the Giants hope. All of these 4-win teams, they've given us hope because the season before, they were a mediocre team. And look what happened. They brought in a head coach, brought in a stud rookie quarterback. Okay, Geno Smith is not a stud rookie quarterback. But look, it could happen. It could happen with any one of these teams. Why not? Why the hell not the Raiders, man?
Because it's the Raiders.
Oh, you need to stop. Stop.
They said twice the hope, double the fall. All right. Any other players that you guys want to talk about?
Yeah, so I'm gonna say who I think will land this one.
Your shot. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do the call your shot.
Let's do it.
We're gonna go with the Chargers. This one feels obvious because the college connection. Tight end Colston Loveland to reunite with Jim Harbaugh, who coached him at Michigan.
Yeah.
Tip spoke, correct point in saying they need a receiver, but they also need a tight end. Look at their tight end position. Will Disley, Stone Smart. It would be nice to bring in, a vertical threat who's got the speed and athleticism, create mismatches in Loveland. Could add as a nice compliment to McConkey. And then if they keep Quentin Johnston, hey, maybe he can develop further. This is still a former first-round pick. He showed some promise last year, Quentin Johnston. So adding someone like Loveland would make sense for the Chargers.
Tip, how do you feel about that one? I'm not too high on the tight ends I'm not in the know on the tight ends like that.
Well, no. So in that offense, in a Greg Roman offense, in a Jim Harbaugh offense, the tight end is something that they treasure. They need that in the offense. They need them to block. They need them to catch. So it could be a situation where Colston Loveland is on that team. It'd be a great pick. They did get Tyler Conklin in the offseason as well. I mean, yeah, we've kind of seen what Tyler Conklin can and cannot do. He is electric with the ball in his hand. He just doesn't get the ball in his hand too many times. But I think Colston Loveland would be a really great fit. And the Chargers need another weapon. Yeah. Just point blank. I mean, they need another weapon. So they need to get this offense going. The run game is something that they're going to be predicated on. I understand that. So the tight end can help in the run game, especially if you have a tight end that is a good blocker. My guy is Terrence Ferguson. I like him. I think he is really a great tight end for one of these teams. I don't think he's a first rounder. I think you're going to get him later in the third or fourth round, but keep an eye out on him. I think he's going to be somebody to look at, but Colston Loveland's another good pick.
Mm-hmm. Now, Tib, do you have a call your shot?
Yeah, you know what? So I wrote about Travis Hunter, and look, I think that him going to the Giants. Now I'm starting to hear rumbles that he could go up as early as the second pick. The Giants do hold the third pick right now. I think that Travis Hunter would be one of those players that for any team, especially the Giants, that can give them an offensive powerhouse with him and Malik Neighbors. I think that'll be a juggernaut for one of these teams to try to decipher against these in the NFC East. So I like Travis Hunter going to the Giants right now. So I'm going to call the shot with him going to the Giants. I understand he is moving up in the drafts, but I say a player that is that versatile. We've seen it happen in the league. We've seen it with Deion Sanders. We've seen a little bit with Devin Hester, what he was able to do in the league earlier in his career. I think that Travis Hunter is one of those elite guys. You can put him, on the defensive side. He could play alongside Paulson Adebo, but I think they really save him for the offensive side. Brian Daboll, come on, it makes sense.
I struggle with Travis Hunter. I don't know.
What do you struggle with?
I just feel like, a lot of the times a player that has multiple roles, I think we talked about this before. Whenever a player, is good at multiple roles, he ends up, jack of all trades, master of none. And in the NFL, everybody's just a master of something in the NFL. And
right.
Sometimes being good at everything just isn't good at all. Like kind of like Justin Fields, where he's kind of good at a couple things, but he's really not good at anything. So that's just kind of the situation that he falls in. Frank, how do you feel?
Well, I hate to draw a comparison to baseball. Not going to draw it like talent for talent, but I just have to do a flashback because when Shohei Ohtani came to the Angels, hold on. When Shohei Ohtani came to the Angels, I remember everyone was like, he can't be great at both. And a lot of people originally thought he'd be better pitching and then just stop hitting. And then it turned out that he's better hitting, but still a stud at both. What I'm saying is I don't think it's not to say that Travis Hunter will be elite at both wide receiver and corner, but you can't rule it out. It could honestly happen. So there's a legit chance. And I think whichever team that drafts Hunter should absolutely let him try to do both, because if he can do it, it's like a generational player that's just so valuable for you. I hope he plays mostly receiver with a bit of corner, because from what I've read, everyone loves him as a receiver. And I think, imagine if Tip said he goes with the Giants with Neighbors, that would be totally disgusting. And then what if Shadir Sanders falls outside the top 15 and he's still falling like we see quarterbacks tend to do at times, like the second quarterback in the class usually does that, or third. And then the Giants move back up and take him. How nasty would that be? That would be pretty sick. Sanders reunited with Hunter and throwing to him and Neighbors. Wow.
And you know what? After what the Giants did last year with Saquon Barkley, they owe this to the fans, man. They owe to make a splash, man. They have to. They got to, because Saquon Barkley, not only did they let him go, he went out there and was almost the MVP of the league. I mean, damn near, because what Saquon Barkley did last year, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I know I didn't say he was the MVP, but he actually was. I mean, you went out there and won the Super Bowl for your team, played through some minor injuries. Like what Saquon Barkley did, man, was absolutely amazing. The Giants, you owe it to your fans to go ahead and make a splash this draft.
You know what I will say with Travis Hunter is you kind of, I don't want to say like foolproof or bust proof yourself, because like, you know, he's almost auditioning for both positions.
Right.
So if you're like, all right, you know, maybe
True.
he'll be better as a corner, then it's like, yo, you spent your first round draft pick on a corner. That's respectable. Or, oh, he's, you know, he's a better wide receiver. You're like, ah, you know, I spent my first round draft pick on a wide receiver. That's still respectable. So, yeah, you know
That's
what?
a good point.
Yeah, that I just thought of that like 2 seconds ago. You are almost bust proofing yourself by taking a Travis Hunter because of all that good stuff. Now, my call on my shot, I'm going Shador Sanders to the Saints. I think the Saints are a terrible organization. I think they're a terribly run organization, which is why I think they're going to do it. And, you know, they're not going to give him any support. He doesn't really have the weapons on the offense. He doesn't really have a running back. He actually has Kamara, but he's kind of on the tail end of his career. They don't really have an offensive line. They don't really have an offensive coordinator. They don't really have a head coach. So it just makes sense for them to be another train wreck and to ruin Shador's career.
Oh man, Natter. I mean, I have heard Shador Sanders. I think the latest one I heard yesterday was Genty. For some reason, the Saints and Genty are starting to pop in, you know, interest for him. Yeah, Sanders, Jackson Dart. They are looking for a quarterback because they got a situation with Derek Carr, the cap space situation. Alvin Kamara is not getting any younger, so it's going to be really fascinating to see what they do, because you'd look at maybe 2 years ago, the Saints were a pretty decent team. And, you know, they always had a good defense. They always play well at home. But these last couple of seasons, they just, for whatever reason, weren't the same Saints that they've been known for. So it is going to be interesting to see what they do. Another team owes it to their fans.
They owe it to their fans for the owner to sell the team to somebody who's a little bit more competent. Alrighty, Frank, how do you feel about that one? Is that a hot take?
Like that they no, you know, the Saints need Derek Carr, isn't it? He's just a stopgap. The Saints need a quarterback of the future. New head coach Kellen Moore could be, you know, handpick his quarterback of the future. It makes a lot of sense for them to have a pairing like that as they, you know, rebuild this team. But I could absolutely see it. I could see them try to go get Jackson Dart later and try to address other parts of their roster. But, you know, I could see Sanders. And then the thing is, like you said, well, at least he'd have Chris Olave if he could finally stay healthy. But, yeah, the Saints are definitely one of my least favorite. I really don't like what they're doing, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you look at their salary cap isn't good either. It's not like they have a lot of cap.
Yeah, it's a mess.
So I mean, it's like they're just kicking the can down the road, but it's not like they're good to even need to kick the can down the road. They're just bad in kicking the can down the road. Reminds me of the Raiders. Anyway,
hey, look, your 49ers aren't that far behind, Natter. Just remember that.
I don't know.
And Marcus Grant was on here, and he's not too excited about him either this year.
Yeah, I'm not either. It's all right. we're rooting for the Commanders now, just because Frank likes them. So
let's go.
We're Commanders fans now.
No, I'm not. But okay.
All right. Well, originally we had a question of the day or a question of the episode. Unfortunately, somebody didn't do his job. I'm not naming names.
But I do have a question.
Okay, let's hear it.
So I posted this last night on Twitter. So I want to hear from Frank, because Frank always has great posts. So name a player that you are completely out on this season. I'll give you my guy first, and I'm going to give you 3 reasons why I'm out on Stephon Diggs.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be a rookie.
No, it doesn't have to be. It can be anybody.
Nice.
So I'm out on Stephon Diggs, and I'm going to give you 3 reasons why. The first reason is Drake May. Drake May is entering into his 2nd season, right? Josh McDaniels is also the offensive coordinator. Josh McDaniels is predicated on pre-snap reads. That is something that Drake May is not struggling in, but that is something that he needs to work on and improve. So with Josh McDaniels, we have already seen the type of offense that he brings in. It can be complicated at times, although Tim Tebow did really well in his earlier years playing with them. But that's just Tim Tebow. That's the kind of guy he is. I'm not saying that Drake May won't be good. I think that he will be good. I think that the Stephon Diggs hype train, you already got the ACL injury that he's coming back from, age 30, a little over 30. And not only that, Cardi B, man. Look, anytime you get there's like certain women that just are not good for athletes, for other entertainers. No, look, Kim Kardashian comes to mind.
Exactly.
Cardi B now comes to mind.
That's already all of them.
Like I got nothing against Cardi B. I love Cardi B. I love her music.
But
the situation with Stephon Diggs and all of this, I just think that Stephon Diggs' headspace is in a different area right now. He signed a really nice contract. I mean, that is good, but then it also, you got a guy over 30 years old, injury, Cardi B. I'm just staying way away from all of this with Stephon Diggs.
I don't know how to top that. I don't know how to top that, Frank. Help me out here.
No, I hear that, and I even seen, like, you know, sometimes you're scrolling your Twitter feed, and I see sometimes, you know, academics. He has that pod. Is he a DJ? No, I don't know. He has a huge podcast, and it's like about how Stephon Diggs has just been hooking up with all these rappers, girls, and so like you said, you know, the headspace. But hey, we don't know. That's speculation. But yeah, I could definitely see it, especially coming off the torn ACL. But for mine, you know, on the surface, I like this player. He struggled in year one and gets a huge bump in coaching and in offensive line. He plays for a team you mentioned in the Bears, Roma Dunze. And it's just because I saw on Twitter, someone tweeted you know, a screenshot of a range around pick 48 to 50 on Underdog best ball leagues. And Odunze is going like 48. So you basically got zero discount after what was, hey, let's face it. It was because there's a crowded receiver room. It was because of bad coaching. But let's face it, he did not do well. He did not perform up to expectation in terms of fantasy. So why are we going to take him top 50? Like, I know the situation has improved. Keenan Allen's likely gone. Obviously, Ben Johnson's a great play caller. But he's going next to players like Devonta Smith who have actually produced. So at that price for Odunze, I'm going to pass. I'd rather, you know, if he went a round or two later, it just feels too expensive for a year two player who just didn't meet expectations in year one.
It reminds me of Gabriel Davis, where he's like, you know, he just doesn't really do anything, but he has that one game that you're like, oh, but what if he does that the whole season, but he doesn't do anything. And then you're like, oh, but now it's different because he still didn't do anything. And you know what? You're paying a premium for him to not do anything, which is great if somebody else drafts him instead of you. Yeah,
exactly. And like last year, I fell into this trap, you know, with Aaron Rodgers healthy. Garrett Wilson went late first, early second round, and we were kind of already expecting that Garrett Wilson would just blow up because now he finally has quarterback play, but he hadn't done it yet. So that's the risk you take when you're taking a player at a draft price that basically is priced in a way that the player should have already produced at that level. You know what I mean? It's just too expensive for me, and I'd rather pass. I get it though; it's best ball, and you're thinking like, Odunze is a deep threat. If Caleb's good, maybe I can make that stack, and it's like, you know, he could have a high weekly ceiling, but it's just too expensive for my taste.
Yeah, and you know, something that you mentioned that I really like is it's hard to draft a player on potential.
Yeah,
because you're paying a premium for potential, and if it works out, you don't really benefit that much because you paid a premium. Like Dunze at a 5th round, like that is a premium. And if he produces wide receiver 2 numbers, well, I mean, that's what a wide receiver 2 produces. He said the 4th to 5th round, and you didn't really gain. There wasn't a reward
of profit.
For the risk.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of profit.
Like you took like last year, you took Marvin Harrison Jr. in the 2nd round. If he performed, well, you didn't benefit because you drafted him in the 2nd round. He's supposed to perform. Yeah. But if he didn't, well, now you screwed your draft. And, you know, I agree with that. Like whenever somebody has potential priced into his fantasy stock, then it's usually difficult for him to reach that fantasy value that you drafted him for. And
yeah, I just would rather, you know, DJ Moore gets the same upgrades as Odunze. Obviously, he's on the same team. Yeah. But DJ Moore's done it before a couple of times. So I'd rather pay up 1 round earlier. I haven't looked at the ADP yet, but I'm assuming it goes maybe 1 or 2 rounds earlier, DJ Moore. I'd rather do that just because he's actually done it and he's established himself as a top target. It just feels like the safer play.
Frank, I think you're onto something. Imagine DJ Moore with Ben Johnson. Oh my God. Like, Like it's just a situation where we can just see DJ Moore, who's already proven himself with poor quarterback play, go to another level, man. The only thing that's going to hurt this guy is if he doesn't stay on the field. So I just think that they are this Bears team. I'm telling you guys, this Bear team is very, very, very sneaky. Of course, they are the Bears. They always don't have luck on their side out there in the Windy City. But I will say this: if they can get a hold of a good offensive lineman in the draft, Ben Johnson with his play calling ability, maybe a good running back in the draft as well with how deep it is. And then you got weapons like Adunze, you've got weapons like DJ Moore. This is a sneaky, sneaky, sneaky offense. And their defense is going to be good. It's been, a pretty decent defense in the past. So it's going to be a good defense out there in the midway. So I'm really looking forward to what these Bears could do.
Mm-hmm.
Nader, we didn't hear from you. I want to hear from you. Who's a player that you're out on?
Oh, yeah,
besides Justin Fields. We know you don't like Justin Fields.
Despise him. Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle. Both of those players, like they hurt my feelings last year. And that's all I don't need a logic. I don't need a reason. You just hurt my feelings, and that's more than enough for me to not want to draft you.
Yeah, no, a lot of people, man. It was bad.
It hurt a lot of people's feelings. That's worse. It's like it's the worst thing is when you draft a premium, you use a premium pick on a player for him to not produce without getting injured. That's the worst.
Oh yeah,
without getting injured, because then you have to start him, and he's not going to do anything, but you still have to start him because how stupid would you feel if you didn't start him and he did what he was normally supposed to do? So
right,
yeah, I'm not drafting either one of those.
Yeah, totally agree.
Oh my God! But all right, go ahead, Tip.
No, I was just going to ask Frank to just let everybody know once again where they can find you. Please, please, please follow this man. This guy is a wealth of knowledge, not only in football, as you just heard, in baseball, in the betting space. The guy is top notch. And then I just want to hear where we could find you. And then I do have another question for you.
Yeah, so you can find my work at Roto Baller, Fantasy Pros, even Pro Football Network. And also I have some betting content at a site called Best Odds. I'll be doing a Substack with True North Fantasy Football as well. And always active on Twitter, posting content. I'll start ramping up on football. Just been in pure baseball mode, but talking football like this with you two as got me hyped for the upcoming seasons. Like I said, perfect transition into the season for me. But yeah, check me out there, and it's been a pleasure talking the NFL draft and fantasy this year. I love the takes, and it should be a good season.
I do have a question for you, Frank, and not to put you on the spot, but are we going to see you on Spaces again, man? Because
so last year sometimes I wasn't able to come. I'm going to be better. If you do it again, I'm going to be more active on that. It's always fun talking every Sunday morning, starting sick questions. Yeah. It's just sometimes, you want to look at, you want to put in your picks. You want to make a DFS lineup. You want to set your own lineup. It's nice sometimes when you have it too for your own. But, the starting sick questions are great also.
Yeah, no, I would look forward to seeing you on there, man, or hearing you on there, man. Again, thank you so much, man. Blessings to you and everyone that you know and you're with, man. Nader, what else do you have for us?
I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get a chance to talk about more betting content. I know, you're starting to tag into that, and you know what? We kind of did. We did have a little segment last year.
Yeah, we did.
We with over and unders where we kind of like guess, they're over like 30 yards or 30 and a half yards or whatever they were expected to get. I'm just saying, I won that bet, Tip. I just want to say, like, I was right more than you.
Yeah, you know what? You were actually really good, Nader. Yeah, you did kick my butt sometimes on there. Sometimes.
But you know what they say, never trust the guy who doesn't gamble. And I don't really gamble. So I mean, like, can you really trust me? Oh, I don't know. I just say random stuff sometimes. But other than that, hey, make sure to subscribe, hit that like, follow, and represent in the comments down below. Tip, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Tip Major. You can find me at OzChecker. I have an article that just popped off right now. I'm about to post that one. I have one that came out last night. I'm almost doing articles every night, it seems like, and I'm having a blast with it. You can also find me at Football Guys I'm going to start ramping up with them once the draft comes up. We're going to be doing a trivia show, so look out for that in May. So that's going to be fun as well. So doing a lot of great things, having a lot of fun. That's the main thing. And, of course, the Level Up podcast with my guy, Natter.
Yeah, that ChatGPT subscription coming up clutch for tip. But other than that, hey, good luck, everybody.
Peace.